This video contains elements that are not suitable for children under the age of 14. Viewer discretion is advised.
I've been dreading this moment for a while now, but at last we have entered the darkest period in Thomas and Friends history, the Nitrogen Era. The first full CGI production to be released was the feature-length special Hero of the Rails, and it was kind of a big deal back then. Thomas discovers an old abandoned Japanese engine named Hero, and relies on the help of the steam team to bring the master of the railway back to his former glory, all while trying to keep Spencer and Sir Topham Hatt from finding out. And, well, it hasn't aged very well. It feels like it drags on for a bit, and Hero's departure at the end feels pointless since he's been seen on Sodor a lot between Series 13 to 20, plus Kenji on the rails again from Series 24, not to mention that the voice acting and visual design both pale compared to what ARC Productions and Jamfield have brought since. Now, to be fair, this was the first production to have a full voice cast since Magic Railroad, so you're not going to get it right the first time around. Mind you, compared to what Hit's other shows looked like at the time, Thomas's role being in CGI is practically Pixar quality, and like Pixar, it gets better with every subsequent production for the most part. Which brings me on to Series 13, the first in the show to be in full CGI after 11 series with models and one hybrid that just looks worse with age. And while I find Series 13 to be bad, I will try to be fair to this series and start out with a few positives. First off, I like how the CGI demonstrates what you could never properly achieve with the models. For example, James being given his pink undercoat and tickled pink. You also get far more expansive sets for many of the long shots, and you also have more consistent set designs, with occasional tweaks here and there that could later be seen in the Brenner era. Plus, it's cheaper in the long run since you can simply reuse the models and, again, occasionally tweak them to look better. Series 13 was the first to utilize a full voice cast for the characters. For example, Ben Small voiced Thomas for the UK dub, while Martin Sherman voiced him for the US dub. I haven't heard much of Martin's voice acting in a long time, and for the purposes of a proper reviewing experience, I've predominantly stuck with the British dub. And no, I don't have any intention of rewatching the American dub for Series 13 to 16. One revisit of that era was one too many for me, but I will say that Ben Small's voice acting for Series 13 doesn't hold up, and his performances as Thomas up to Series 18 were usually hit or miss.
If I may say something, Zach, about the two voices for Thomas?
Sure, go ahead.
Between the two, I personally prefer Martin Sherman voicing Thomas, especially in Season 17 and 18. His Percy voice is quite good too, while his Diesel voice was hit or miss. Ben Small, on the other hand, I'm sure he's a nice guy, but his Thomas is no John Hasler or Eddie Glenn. Although I do like his Renee's voice, and he did some other voices that were pretty good too.
However, the best voice actor for Thomas, discounting John Hasler, is Daniel Radcliffe.
Harry Potter? When did he voice Thomas?
Robot Chicken.
My internal organs! Oh, just finish me, you pussies! Oh, what cruel god would give a train a face?
Okay, it wasn't official, but still, if it did make another Thomas movie, Dan Radcliffe would be my first choice for Thomas himself.
I see. Well, I guess I'll leave you to continue sharing your thoughts on Series 13.
Thanks, Mike. Anyway, the other voice actors who joined in Hero of the Rails included Carrie Shale, Teresa Gallagher, William Hope, Glenn Rage, Matt Wilkinson, Jules DeJong, David Badella, and Keith Wickham, as well as Michael Brandon voicing Diesel for the US dub, and Togo Agawa as Hero for both dubs. Again, the voice acting doesn't hold up compared to later series, but for the time, it was nice having the characters actually speak for themselves in the English dub, even if the writing didn't do them much justice, but more on that in a bit. Lastly, the runtime was extended once again, this time to 8 minutes and 45 seconds, with the opening song, engine roll call, and credits filling up close to 11 minutes. Even if it felt too long for the stories being told, I like that they extended the runtime because, in theory, it allows more room for the story to develop, but again, it was finally realized in the Brenner era. And that's all I can think of in terms of the positives. The writing for Series 9 through 12 ranged from pretty good to pretty terrible, but for Series 13, holy 18-inch Stonehenge, it was dreadful. Every once in a while, you had a good episode like Tickled Pink and A Blooming Mess, but the majority of the episodes fall victim to what many have called the three strikes formula. Basically, an engine screws up their jobs 3 times before putting things right again, and then you pad it all out with unnecessary narration from Michaels, Angelus, and Brandon, and that's Series 13 in a nutshell. Wow, that is very creative.
not.
But that's not the worst of it. Thomas appears and speaks in every episode, and it gets to the point that 13 episodes are dedicated to him, most of which were wasted on him being an insufferable dumbass. What were they thinking?
Hello? Hello? Anybody home? Huh?
The rest of the Steam team, barring Edward, each got one episode to themselves. James and Emily got pretty lucky with Tickle Pink and A Blooming Mess respectively, but everyone else was a mixed bag. Gordon had a fair starring role with Snow Tracks. Percy's parcel was simply okay. But as for Toby and Henry, well, if you thought they had bad luck throughout series 8 through 12, then take that, only ramped up to 11, and that's what we got with Toby's new whistle and Henry's good deeds. Yeah, on a side note, I never understood why anyone would enjoy Henry's good deeds. He didn't perform any at all in this episode. Stopping for animals to let them cross isn't a good deed. It's just common sense and showing sensitivity to their surroundings. It's a stupid episode and solid proof as to why he's better suited as a secondary character, because being part of the Steam team means that you were going to end up with starring roles even if they didn't fit your character or previously established starring roles. Another episode I don't understand is Buzzy Bees, an episode that somehow got bundled with digital downloads and Hulu versions of several CGI Thomas DVDs, each containing 4 episodes but needed a 5th in order to fill up 1 hour. Why? What was so appealing about that heap of junk? Couldn't they have chosen other episodes in the Nitrogen series to add some variety? They had 80 of them. Surely a bit more variety wouldn't hurt. Even if it was wonky whistle, at least we would have gotten something different. The only episode to not focus on any of the Steam team was the series finale, Hero Helps Out. I've not revisited Hero of the Rails yet, but I will say right now that I think he's an okay character, but Hero's leading re-role in this series didn't do him any justice. You could have replaced him with Edward and the result would have been the same, and strangely, he still stays on Sodor for a further 11 series, I think, before leaving for Japan again with no fanfare, even though despite missing his home country, Hero certainly doesn't seem to spend a lot of time there. The other Hero of the Rails newbies were Victor and Kevin, the Steamworks duo. Victor is probably my favorite out of them, and it probably helps that he's remained a constant staple of the CGI series and the Sodor Steamworks. Kevin, however, took a little while to grow. His clumsiness was very much used for comedic effect, even though it was toned down in recent years, but it does pop up once in a while. The only real newbie for Series 13 was Charlie, the Purple Billy Exby. That is probably the best thing about Charlie, is that he replaced the orange idiot in Splish Splash Splosh, so that's a bullet dodged there. I swear, if I see Billy again in the show, I will not be happy. So many people hate Charlie as well, but for me, personally, I'm sort of indifferent to him. He's not the worst thing in existence, but they really could have done more of him if given a proper chance. They have a decent role for him as a shunting engine at Nafford, but he's hardly been addressed since Series 18, specials like The Great Race notwithstanding. Series 13 was going to air in 2009, but was pushed to 2010 instead after production had ended. Production had started in January 2009, running concurrently with Hero of the Rails, which would explain why there was such a small cast in Series 13. However, 4 episodes were released in theaters that November before being released on DVD in January the following year. The episodes were Playtime, Splish Splash Splosh, Slippy Sodor, and Snow Tracks. And in between the episodes was Mr. Perkins baking a cake in the shape of Thomas for Sir Topham Hatt's birthday. Which reminds me, for 2 Series 12 DVDs in America, the episodes included in-between segments featuring engine driver Mr. Arkwright, played by Robert Slade, either making a cardboard Thomas or getting ready for the day's work. From what I remember, they were pretty well liked, but for whatever reason, he was superseded by Mr. Perkins, played by the late Ben Forster. Who knows why Mr. Arkwright was replaced, even if he was later mentioned in some Perkins segments. The Mr. Perkins segments were probably the biggest highlight of the CGI releases at the time. Like the Arkwright segments, they were vaguely reminiscent of Shiny Time Station, but with Perkins interacting with the audience while things were happening in the day of his working life, such as looking after Beaky the troublesome parrot, demonstrating how a model railway works, or teaching his protege Artie how to be a responsible engine driver. After the Nitrogen era, Mr. Perkins had his own set of segments away from the engine driver's common room at Nafford Station, like teaching children various aspects of the railway, answering to postcards from various passengers, or reading some stories from the Railway series. Sadly, they were discontinued in 2017 following Ben Forster's death from cancer that same year. Prior to Mr. Perkins' Railway, there were the Down to the Station segments, narrated by Michael Zangelis and Brandon for their respective dubs. They were produced by Leighton Shale and directed by Ben Hall, again showing how real railways operate, being being filmed at the Lakeside and Haverfordwite Railway and the Llangollen Railway. These segments were readily available on DVD in the UK, and the only way you could watch them in America was on PBS Kids. You know, it's really sad that the in-between segments are a lot more enjoyable than the episode Series 13 shoved into our faces. I don't know what more I could say that hasn't been said. This series is just dreadful, and the few gems aren't enough to salvage the whole thing. And you know what's even worse, folks? We have to endure this crap for 3 more series.
And one more thing, if we all thought Charlie was annoying, just wait. The worst newbies to ever come into existence for this show will actually be showing up soon enough.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Seriously? Why do you keep butting in like that?
You've got to have strength to make your wheels go round. Strength to lift things off the ground. You've got to have strength to get you to the top. Strength